This is Jordan. Yvette.
Hello.
Hi.
Yesenia.
Have brain block.
That's okay. Yesenia.
Yesenia, that's correct. They're from the mental health, and this is Pam Gutierrez. She's the executive director of Denton Mental Health, and they're here to help with spread the word for what we're trying to convey. We've had numerous accidents out here, and a lot of people don't know. I was talking, I forget your name.
Carol.
Yeah. She heads up a loss prevention group here locally that meets up St. Mark's.
St. Mark.
And
Yeah.
I didn't know about it. I mean, it's the best kept secret so far, but we've got to spread the word somehow for this to get out to our residents. So with that said, I'll turn it over to you ladies.
How's everyone doing today? Good. Well, we are happy to be here today with you before the storm we're supposed to get, unfortunately. But my name is Jordan Clifton, and I am the loss team coordinator. And I am here to talk about loss and what we do, and also suicide grief. So, you have that little...
Right there on top for you. Yes, ma'am.
And then you do this, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
On the right.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. The number right here that I have on the screen, it is 24/7. And so that is for suicide survivors to call if they are having any hard time processing their grief, or if you know someone that is struggling with suicide grief, you can give them that number and I will answer the phone most likely, and I'll go ahead and talk with them and possibly meet up with them and give them some comfort. All right. So, before I give you all the answers. So, does anyone know any myths about suicide that pop into your head?
Well, that if you pay attention to what people say, that you can discern that they're thinking about suicide.
Yeah.
I don't know, is that a myth?
So, I think that would be a fact.
Oh, okay.
But, I mean, that's good that, this is a learning experience for everybody. I'm here to spread awareness about suicide and to let everybody know that it is a thing and it's not going anywhere. And, so that's why we're here, talk about mental health. So, suicide myths. Discussing suicide will cause someone to do it. If someone has any suicidal or thinks suicidal ideations, you are not going to put any ideas in their head that they're not already thinking about. So what you can do is you can ask them. And it's much easier to not ask them. And that's why people don't do that. So what you can say is, I'm sorry I'm going to have to ask you this, but I really care about you. And I want you to be okay. Are you feeling suicidal? That easy. Are you thinking about suicide? That's what we can say. People who threaten suicide don't do it. So there's a myth that says, they just want attention or, something like that. Well, people who die by suicide, they give you warnings. They might say things. They might do things. And, people don't think initially like, oh, they're suffering. I need to do something. And so we might not see those signs, but sometimes they're there. When a person attempts suicide and is getting better, the danger is over. So usually people who die by suicide, they have a mental illness. 90% of people who die by suicide have a mental illness. And so if they attempt and they fail, they might try again. And so we can't just put that on the back burner and think that they're okay, because they're not. They're still at risk. Suicide is always an impulsive act. So like I said earlier, people who die by suicide, sometimes they plan it. You might see people start figuring out finances for after they're gone. Or they might start giving away personal items, thinking that they won't need it anymore. So they're going to give it to their kids. They're going to give it to family members or friends. Stuff like that. And then also, suicide happens without warning. So like I said, there are times where you're not going to see any signs and symptoms or warnings. But most of the time you might. It's very hidden, maybe, but you know, they're there. Next slide. Well, we're going to figure this out. Oh, goodness.
Is the one on the right, Jordan?
Yeah.
Did you try? Let's see, is it getting a little tricky? Wow, we're going to blame it on Scott, so, because I don't know who else to blame, and it's the one name I know in the room, so, I don't know. Batteries are good. Oh, it's something, yeah, it's something with the computer, because it's not even advancing.
No.
Yeah, the cursor did move.
Scott, this is my fear.
Try the right arrow key.
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay.
I just need your magic touch.
Now,
Now, does it work?
yes, it does. There you go. It works.
Just thread.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Awesome. Sorry about that. So, like I said, I'm with LOSS team, and LOSS stands for Local Outreach to Suicide Survivors. And so some people think a suicide survivor is someone who has attempted and not completed. So, suicide survivor is someone who has lost someone to suicide. Terminology for mental health is always changing, and that's just gonna happen. But a suicide survivor is maybe a family member, a friend, a coworker. It depends on the relationship. And so LOSS offers support, resources, installation of hope to suicide survivors. And so that looks different for every suicide survivor, and it depends on what they need. Some people like to read things. Some people need physical support. Some people just want resources. And some people like to do it in the comfort of their own home. They don't like to talk about it, and that's okay. So we are mostly comprised of volunteers. We have one in this room, and so LOSS is made up of two groups of volunteers. There's qualified mental health professionals and suicide survivors. And that's what makes LOSS unique, I think. And so I am the only full-time paid staff for LOSS. And then we also have a PRN staff. And we are mostly funded by grants, fundraising, and then we also work under Denton County MHMR under the special programs umbrella. There's a lot of special programs in MHMR, and I believe LOSS is one of the best. But LOSS duties. So we go on scene, and what that looks like is if there is a suicide and the ME goes out and works it, they will call us. And what we do is we go to the home if there's any suicide survivors on scene, and so that could be anyone who finds the deceased, or a neighbor, or friends, or neighbors, whatever the case may be. We go there and support them immediately. We provide them with resources, we give them physical support, and we let them know that there's life after loss. Delayed response. So what that looks like is after a suicide, if there are no suicide survivors on scene, we contact the family and we ask if they want us to come to the home and help them process. That can look like anything they want it to be. We're just there to support them. Follow-ups and support suicide survivors. So we support suicide survivors up to 1 year. I do phone follow-ups, and we can visit outside of doing phone follow-ups. We like to call on anniversaries and birthdays of the deceased because those days are much harder for their loved ones. and community outreach. So what I'm doing right now, spreading awareness of suicide, teaching the community that it's okay to talk about it. Education and coalition partnership. So I'm a part of 3 coalitions, and so they focus a lot on preventing suicide and lowering those numbers. And then what LOSS does, so LOSS is post-vention work. So this is after a suicide. And what we do is work with suicide survivors because they are 2 to 10 times more likely to die from suicide themselves. So that's why post-vention is so important, because post-vention is prevention for the next generation. And so LOSS was created by Dr. Frank Campbell, and he developed the active post-vention model, which is LOSS. And so he started that in 1997, and he did some research, and he found before LOSS, or people that don't have LOSS, it takes them much longer to seek out help for their loss. And after LOSS team intervenes and is able to talk to suicide survivors, it only takes them 39 days. And part of that is we're able to provide them resources, where to go, what to do, how they may be feeling. So Denton LOSS history, we started in 2015. We began going on scene in 2016 and did delayed visits in 2015. With COVID, we stopped doing on scene, but we still did delayed visits because people are always dying, and that doesn't, we still need to support people. So COVID or not, we were going out if families needed it. Most recently, this month, we started going on scene again. So, why is LOSS important? LOSS team is very important because suicide numbers continue to rise. No matter the efforts that we're doing, they are still increasing. And so, with Texas being so big, there is only 8 LOSS teams in Texas. 8 counties have LOSS teams to support their communities. And so this is the most recent data we have from the CDC regarding suicide. Suicide is the 11th leading cause of death in Texas. Guns, they are number 1 method used for suicides. Can anyone guess the second? That's correct.
What'd you say?
Hanging.
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 Yes. So studies have shown here recently that with every 1 suicide, 135 people are affected. So, say here at Rosen Ranch, a neighbor passes away to suicide. It's not just their family, it's not just their friends, it's the whole community. Because maybe you found them. You know, maybe you came outside your door. This affects every single one in the community, and that's why LOSS is important. So Denton County 2022, numbers, you know, we still might get a couple due to toxicology reports, but so far there's been 119 suicides in Denton County. In 2021, there was 98. 92 males and 27 females have passed away from suicide, most of those being white. White males are predominantly, have an increasing amount that die due to suicide. Denton being the first on the list that have the highest number, and Louisville have the second. Louisville has actually gone down since 2021. Not a lot, but they do, they're doing it, might be helping. We need to talk to Louisville. But the age ranges that were the highest for suicide was 45 to 55 and 65 to 74. 22 individuals in those age groups died by suicide last year. So, committed suicide. A lot of people say that, not meaning anything bad. But like I said, terminology in mental health is always changing. And it's better to say died by suicide or, suicided. That sounds kind of weird, but saying committed suicide, it kind of makes suicide survivors feel like there was a crime done. They committed a sin that is wrong. And I was told, and I truly believe this, people who die by suicide are not in their right mind. So that's why I try to convince folks to not say committed anymore. I know it's a natural thing to say, and sometimes I catch myself, and that's okay. People are forgiving. So everyone has heard of the grief stages, okay? Something that differs suicide grief from regular grief is the feelings that survivors feel. A lot of survivors feel blame because they didn't do enough. They didn't ask that question. Asking why? Why did they do that to us? Why did they abandon us? Suicide survivors will always have questions of why. And the bad thing is we'll never get answers for those. Shame. So shame comes from the stigma of suicide, and that's what prevents suicide survivors from getting help. Because no one wants to say that their family member died by suicide, because it's still looked down upon. Fear, guilt, and even some suicide survivors feel relief. Maybe the deceased was given an illness that they are not being able to get help for. Cancer, pain that they're unable to get rid of. So a lot of people, when their loved ones pass away from suicide and the family knows that they were in pain and they couldn't get help, they feel some relief that they're not in pain anymore. What else? Abandonment, rejection, and stigmatized, shocking, traumatic. A lot of loved ones find their deceased in the room, down the hall. Suicide is so traumatic for loved ones, it's very, very hard to get over that. So there are different groups of survivors, but all are important. So someone, for instance, if I lost my father to suicide, and he was your coworker, and you were the cop that came on scene and worked the scene. We are all affected by suicide, but in different ways. And so it depends on the relationship if they really need help. And so, like I said before, suicide survivors are 10 times more likely to die by suicide. And so, when this happens to you or a loved one, the chances of you dying of suicide depends on a lot of things. So it depends on your age, if you have a mental health issue going on, the color of your skin, your resources in your community, substance abuse disorder. The most common disorders that are usually seen in people who die by suicide are depression and bipolar, and substance abuse. So with suicide grief, like I said, it is very stigmatized. You don't want to reach out to talk to your neighbor. You don't feel like you're worthy of resources because your loved one passed away, and that's not true. Acknowledge that you lost someone to suicide. Acknowledge that you need to grieve. Acknowledge that pain even though it's hard. Turn to family and friends. I lost my brother to suicide, and so family has been the biggest support that I have because they understand. Join a support group. So there are 3 support groups in Denton County for suicide survivors. one being down the street, 5 minutes away, the other in Oak Point and Flower Mound. Create a routine of self-care. So everyone has experienced grief in their life, and what helps most is having a routine, something that they're used to. And I would like to add in some self-care. What does self-care look like to you? Does anyone have any self-care in their life that they do daily? What is it?
Just affirmations and gratitude practice.
Yes? Anyone else?
Prayer.
Prayer?
Going to the gym.
Exactly. Mine's walking my dogs. Something as simple as that. Taking the time to do something that you like, a hobby. Draw comfort from your faith. So losing someone to suicide, it can bring you away from your faith, but it can also bring you close to your faith. It's all up to you. Talk to a counselor. So I refer suicide survivors to counselors who have background in trauma, grief, stuff like that. Look after your physical health. Try to maintain your interest. There's a golf course out there. Walk your dog. Go golfing. Go to the gym. Be gentle and patient with yourself. So grief can be hard, and it can be long, and it can be draining mentally, physically, emotionally. So you have to be patient with yourself. Memorize your loss and find meaning. So when I lost my brother, hearing about loss, that was my meaning. So I came here, and that's helping me to help other suicide survivors. And there is nothing else that I would do in this world. How can you help others? So when your neighbor loses their spouse to suicide, a lot of people feel uncomfortable. They want to help, but they don't know how. Expressing sympathy and providing a safe place. What I mean by that is physically being there and having them talk. Be comfortable with silence, because maybe they just need you physically there so they're not alone in that house. Accept and forgive. Like regular grief, suicide grief, it causes people to be angry. It causes people to say things they don't mean or do things they don't want to do. So it's good for you to forgive them and move on. Refrain from trying to explain the loss and saying, I know how you feel. A lot of people, I catch myself trying to do that, but every person's story is different. You don't know how they feel. Don't ask why or judge. So when suicides happen, a lot of people are nosy. A lot of people want to know what happened, what led them to do this, what was going on in the house. They want to ask questions. They want to know why they did it. And like the loved ones, we don't know why. So the best you can do is just be there for that neighbor. Offer practical help. Be a neighbor. So practical help. Bring a meal. Walk their dog. Babysit for them so they can sit in their room and do nothing. Practical help. Encourage professional help when necessary. So if you are seeing them struggling for months on end, provide them with some resources to see a counselor, support group. Give them a book. Ask them to come to church. Take a mental health training. There are so many trainings you can take to familiarize yourself with mental health and suicide. If you need access to those, I would be more than happy to give them to you. Resources for mental health. So like I said, 90% of suicides have a mental health issue. And so that's okay. Everyone has something going on in their life that they struggle with. Own up to it. Help yourself. So I included a couple that are also in the back. And these are some things that you can look at in your own home. You don't have to go anywhere. You can just go online. resources for suicidal ideation, MHMR psychiatric triage, so that is in Denton. That is actually the building where I work, and they do 24/7 assessments for people who are struggling with their mental health and illnesses. Yvette is going to be talking more about that. We also have text 988 or call 988, and then these numbers down below. And these are the references. So Yvette is going to speak, and then we're going to do any questions at the end, if that's all right with everyone.
Awesome. Hey, let's see what you do this next one. Go Wayne. Thank you so much, I appreciate it. Hello, everybody, once again. I'm Yvette Richardson-Ellis, and I am proud to be here with you today, happy to be here with you today. I happen to serve currently as the Community Training Coordinator for Denton County MHMR. Jordan and I are here to provide you all with hope and with facts. Okay? So I put together this little presentation for you all. I'm going to speak on the signs and symptoms of mental health issues, mental health concerns. We're going to talk about worsening signs and symptoms, because sometimes people might think, well, gosh, if I had known to look for this, or you know, she was acting a little differently, something like that. So it's easy for us all to relate to, okay? And then I'm going to touch on some of the trainings that I personally facilitate, and then we have other facilitators at our center as well. So let's get started. First of all, why would a person in this room ever call 911? Yeah, for a heart attack, for a medical emergency, something like that, right? So just like the lovely Jordan just told us, 988 is our go-to number. And I'm starting with that because it's relatively new and it's important. So I tell people, if you have an emotional emergency, call 988. When we have a physical emergency, we call 911. So medical, 911, emotional or psychological, 988. If I need mental health treatment and it's 3 in the morning and for some reason I shouldn't feel ashamed or embarrassed, but if I do and I don't want to call my own facility, I can call what?
988.
You got it. That's it. So let's talk about mental health. Mental health includes emotional, psychological, and social well-being. It affects how we think, feel, act, and make choices and relate to others. This part highlighted is so beautiful to me. Mental health is more than the absence of a mental illness. It's essential to our overall health and quality of life. So I just want to let you know, this is according to NIH, which is the National Institute of Health. Okay? So we all strive to have mental health. Okay? All right, so let's get right into it. These are common signs and symptoms of a mental health concern. Excessive worry and or fear. Feeling excessively sad or low. Confused thinking or problems concentrating and learning. Extreme mood changes, uncontrollable highs or uncontrollable lows, and prolonged or strong feelings of irritability and anger. And I know I did the same thing. I didn't wear my glasses. I could barely see anything. But these are just like broad strokes. Okay, broad strokes. And please, please, I don't want anyone to have any worries. If you would like this email to you, just let me know. I'll send it to you. If I need to type it out in a different format for you, please just let me know. I'd be happy to do that for you. Some other common warning signs and symptoms of a mental health condition could be perhaps avoiding friends, isolating, staying to themselves, difficulty understanding or relating to other people. So maybe
Perhaps a reason we don't have more chairs filled today, maybe some people are feeling like they don't want to socialize. Perhaps individuals are feeling like they need or want to isolate and keep to themselves, perhaps. Also, changes in sleep habits or feeling tired, low energy. Let me just interject right here. I failed to tell you this at the beginning. I am under our lovely umbrella of, it's called MCOT. It's the Mobile Crisis Outreach Team. Okay, so I'm under that umbrella. I also, besides trainings, I also conduct, it's called risk of harm assessments on individuals. So when people are either suicidal and or homicidal, we do an assessment on them to determine whether that individual requires inpatient treatment or outpatient treatment, okay? So I interjected right there to let you know that some of these signs and symptoms that I listed for you all, I give you my word, it comes right from our assessment. We always ask the person about their sleep patterns. We ask about their appetite, if they've gained weight or lost weight. If they wake up several times during the night. If they do wake up during the night, does it take them a long time to fall back to sleep, etc. You guys with me? Okay.
You're talking about,
I'm sorry.
that's a lot of our problems right now.
You don't even want to tempt me to start cutting up, okay? Because please just don't tempt me. I can relax. Believe me, yes. Keep me busy, yes. Also, some individuals have changes in their sex drive. Some individuals become sexually promiscuous. Okay, that just happens. It's part of the telltale signs, if you will. Some other signs and symptoms are, okay, I like this one, difficulty perceiving reality. Delusions or hallucinations in a person which experiences a sense of things that doesn't, it's not like in their objective reality. So it's like delusional, psychotic, okay? So that occurs. Inability to perceive changes in their own feelings. So therefore, let's say Bob, I usually use that for an example, hypothetical Bob. Let's say Bob is unaware that he's isolating. Let's say usually Bob is a clean-shaven fella, and then all of a sudden Bob is just stubby, and he's not tucking in his shirt anymore. He looks a bit disheveled. You know, just a little different change in Bob. That happens. Let's see, overuse of substances like alcohol and/or drugs. I actually do a lot of trainings for police departments, and Pam will tell you, and she's our CEO, and I'm honest with her. She'll tell you, I'm transparent. So, for example, even when I do trainings and presentations at police departments, I tell them people smoke dope. Some people do. I mean, it's the truth. People have a cigar and a whiskey sometimes to unwind. Some people have a hot bubble bath. Oh darn, thank you. A hot bubble bath and a little scented candle or something, right? Everyone does something different. The issue is when an individual goes overboard with it, whether it's chocolate, whether it's that whiskey and a cigar, whether it's retail therapy. If I enjoy retail therapy, I love shopping, but I overdo it, it's going to get me into a financial bind. Same thing with a little wacky weed. If I smoke on a little wacky weed every now and again, but and I'm saying it in a humorous manner because what else can I do with this subject matter? I have to inject just a little bit, right? Because I'm human too. But I just want to bring home the point that we're human, individuals do things, individuals have vices, okay? But we have to learn to differentiate between that vice and a mental health sign and or symptom. Yes? Let's see. An intense fear of weight gain or weight loss and with their appearance, an ability to carry out daily activities, and then we lead to thinking about suicide. So, when it comes to worsening signs and symptoms, Can someone tell us what absenteeism is? Absenteeism. There you go, not showing up. So we can talk about, thank you, we can talk about a kiddo in school. We can talk about a coworker, something like that, right? We can talk about a community member, perhaps not showing up to the events that they usually show up to. But what I really, really like to talk about is presenteeism. Have you ever heard of that? I'm glad. You know why? Because at least I know you'll have a good takeaway. You're going to have lots with us. That's going to be one, right? So presenteeism. Presenteeism is like, you're there, yes ma'am, but you're really not there. So Jordan and I have, we're starting to get to know one another. We work in the same building, okay? So Jordan is always, coming down the hall, or, she's making her coffee or making copies or whatever, and I cut up. I enjoy a good laugh, okay? And she knows that I'm usually speaking and saying hello and good morning to everyone, blah, blah, blah. So if Jordan sees me, Jordan, what have I done? And if Jordan sees me one day and I'm not smiling, I'm not laughing, I'm not being social, it's like I'm there, but I'm not really there. Jordan knows to check on me. Yes, that's it. That's what it is. That's what neighbors do. That's what human beings do. That's what good people do. That's what we do. So when you're there, but not really there, or you see your neighbor and they have all these newspapers, or they haven't checked their mail, right? Thank you, Jordan. Okay, so let's see here. Does anyone happen to know what passive thoughts of death are? I'm going to tell you, and I usually say it like this: damn, I wish I wasn't awake. I wish I wasn't alive today, but I can't say it like that because my boss is here. My boss's boss's boss is here. So I can't say it like that, right? That event. So, damn, I wish I didn't wake up today, damn. I'm just a burden to my mom. And my supervisor doesn't like me, and I'm no good at my job. I'm not even worth anything. I'm overweight. I'm single. Kids grown. I just wish I wasn't here. I'm tired of living. Examples of what? Passive thoughts of death. We're human. Most people have thought, why am I here? At one point in your life, perhaps. Or maybe if you're going through a bad breakup or divorce or whatever life unfolds and brings to us sometimes, that yucky stuff, right? A passive thought of death is different than suicidal ideation. So I just wanted to give you that working example. I give people that example because I think it resonates with them. It's like, darn, I'm a burden to my kids. I don't want to be a burden to my kids. Ever since I got this diagnosis, nobody's going to want to take care of me. That sort of thing, okay? That human thing. So we're going to switch gears and go to suicidal ideation. So when individuals are experiencing passive thoughts of death, they have no plan to have death by suicide, okay? So we can think it. Oh, I'm worthless. Oh, I'm never going to have another husband. Oh, whatever that yucky stuff is, that yucky self-talk that we do. Suicide ideation is a broad term used to describe a range of contemplations, wishes, and preoccupations with death and or suicide. So it differs than just the passive thoughts of death. And then we have active suicidal ideation. It's not only thinking about death by suicide, but having the intent to end one's life by suicide, including planning how to do it. So, and I know it's a lot, and I know it's uncomfortable, but this is what we deal with, right? As a society, as a community, right? So individuals that have thoughts of death, pretty common. Individuals that have suicidal ideation, perhaps it's fleeting, right? Perhaps it's fleeting, but when individuals become actively suicidal, that's when we have to intervene. At Denton County MHMR, we get our clients, we acquire our clients and serve our clients through various measures. Some individuals literally walk into our facility. Sometimes the police bring them to our facility. Anytime I get to work and the police are already there, I know what kind of day it's going to be, you know? And that's just it, right? We get referrals from hospitals, and et cetera, and from the crisis lines as well. So I think you will like this. And what I mean by like this, I think it's relatable. You don't have to be in mental health. You don't have to have a degree in mental health. You don't have to be a qualified mental health professional. It's just human. Acute risk factors for suicide. Oh, well, my watch is talking to me. Did you hear it? One night I promised Siri and what's her name? What's the other one's name? They had an argument and I had a cocktail. And they were just going at it. I thought, oh my gosh. Really, it's true. I'll tell you afterwards. Here we go. So we put it down. So, is Pat warm? Is Pat warm? This little acronym helps us work through this and maneuver through this. So the I is for increased or excessive substance use. We already talked how the whiskey and cigar went overboard, right? Suicidal or homicidal ideation. If an individual feels as though their life has no purpose, anger, feeling trapped, and feeling hopeless. We often ask individuals during these risk of harm assessments, do you have any hope? Do you have a support system? Do you feel trapped? Do you have options in life? So we do that sort of thing, right, to get to these answers. When individuals are feeling withdrawn, when they have, anxiety, insomnia, reckless behavior, mood swings. Is Pat warm? And no worries. Like I said, I will be more than happy to email this to you. Family, friends, loved ones, community members, ourselves. Is Pat warm? All right, so when it comes to attempts, and Jordan and I, like I said, we're getting to know each other. She's a lovely lady. We went through both of our presentations yesterday, and I just decided to keep this so straightforward when it comes to suicide attempts. Females are 3 times more likely to attempt than males. However, males have completed suicides, right, more often than females. Can someone tell me, and it's 3.6 times more often than females, can someone tell me why that is?
Lethal means.
Yeah, lethal means.
That's right. Women are
Yeah, very rare. And when we say lethal means, firearms, right? Right. Yeah. Age factor, and Ms. Jordan did touch on this earlier. This group, I was talking to a gentleman outside before we began, and we're talking about teenagers and young people and blah, 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 how susceptible they are to suicide and death by suicide, etc. And, I shifted gears and I said, well, you want to know the highest rated population that's affected? I don't know about you guys, but I'm in that category. I'm in that age range. Ages 45 to 64. Let's talk about why. What do you think?
Well, one might be that literally they've lost their jobs and they feel like that's it. I mean, at that age, if you don't have a job, you think you'll never get one down.
Exactly. I use the example, when I do this training, I use the example that I'm a retired nurse, and I was a nurse for 35 years, and now I've retired. So what am I? What good am I if I can't do my profession, right? What other reasons? Thank you so much. What other reasons? Yes, ma'am.
Okay, well, you know what, the ones here that, there's been several here, it's been sort of scary lately.
Yes, ma'am.
In fact, one was a neighbor, next door neighbor.
Yes, ma'am.
And, but they were all, you know, talk about mental health, but they were all sick. One had severe pain, one was cancer and was in his 90s, and the other one I'm not sure of, but I'm thinking, were they less mentally stable, or did they just think, God, I can't take this pain anymore? There was even a young boy at church who had severe pain, who lived at home with his parents and said, to hell with this, I'm checking out. And so there's a lot. Is their mental health, you know, twisted that they can't cope? Or do they just, it's so painful that they just got to end it?
Thank you for all of that. There's not a blanket. There's not a one size fits all. For some individuals, yes, it's their mental health disorder. But for some individuals, another contributing factor, it is that excruciating daily pain. That pain so bad you can't even whisper about it, right? Because it's disgusting, it hurts you so bad. It's all of the above, because we're human. We're human. I don't know about you guys, but I don't want to feel that pain of bone cancer. I don't want to feel that. I used to work in hospice. I was a volunteer coordinator for them. Loved them. I couldn't take them dying on me. That's why I could not take it. I just feel it. And I have a thing for older people, little grandmas and such, and I just love them. And I fell in love with this little grandma. Her name was Opal, and Opal messed around and died on me. And I couldn't do it anymore. So, the pain, all of those things, guys, like sincerely, I want you to know that's what it is. We don't know what we're going to deal with next year. We don't know what we're going to deal with this afternoon with the storm weather. Now, do we? Nope, we don't know. So, please let me rephrase, I try not to judge. I try to look at it optimistically. I try to provide hope with facts for individuals now that I'm in this field. I will tell you one thing I do know for a fact. Suicide is not a selfish act. It is not. However, if it's happened to you, and especially if it's fresh, I can see how one might feel that way, but it's not a selfish act. Death by suicide is about pain. It's about unbearable, excruciating pain, whether it's physical and or emotional. Yes, sir.
You use the one word that I believe encompasses everything.
Yes, sir.
The pain, the feeling of not being useful anymore. Pain. And that word is hope.
Yes.
When you lose hope, that nothing is ever going to change, your life is going to be this way forever, then that's it.
Then what do I have to live for? Why am I sticking around? You know, my kids are out of the house, or my kids won't talk to me anymore because my son came out and I didn't support his lifestyle, and my husband left me for that young Barbie girl. You know, however we want to word that. Sometimes he leaves for kin. It just depends on what kind of mood I'm in when I give these examples. Because it's real life. Because these are things that really, right, Yesenia? It's real life. These things happen to us. But sir, you're right. And it's like, I'm telling y'all the truth, like, it's frightening to think of being alone. It's frightening to think of being isolated at home, being embarrassed to tell your neighbor, Pam, I didn't mean to bother you, but I'm an embarrassed girl, but I've got to tell you, I'm hungry. Like, people are hungry. You get what I'm saying? Like perhaps the the divorce settlement didn't go the way it was supposed to. Perhaps there was a, what do you call it, a second mortgage on the home or something. Perhaps. It's all life. You know, we just don't know which end we're going to be on sometimes, right? But you hit it spot on, sir. You really did. But yeah, so all of these are different contributing factors. So I told you about MCOT, that's the lovely umbrella that I work under. So individuals on this lovely team will go out into the community anywhere they are. Hospitals, the residents, Starbucks, McDonald's, 7-Eleven, doesn't matter, okay? What can we do to help? Just like Jordan touched on, what can we do to help? And I love that she included that we can educate ourselves, because that's what we need to do. We can take different trainings. We can check on ourselves first and foremost. We can check on our neighbors, our community members, our co-workers, our Kiwanis brother, our whomever, our
Can we
co-workers.
call that number for some other person though, that we're worried about?
Yes, you can, and I'm just going to say, yes, you can. However, if you're calling about yourself, it's going to be a shorter route to getting that assistance.
Some of these people wouldn't
Right,
do that.
right. I know that, and I get that. We have a lot of family members, oh gosh, that call in, and you know what we end up doing? It's called a welfare check.
Yeah.
We call the police for assistance for a welfare check because my teenage son has been locked in his room for 3 days.
Yeah.
I know he's in there and he's eating, but I'm afraid he's losing it. Can somebody come out and help him? Okay. Also, just really quickly, and I don't have time's not allowing me the privilege of delving into this the way I want to. Please be mindful. What Jordan said about language, please be mindful. And we don't, I mean, she's so sweet. I'm not so sweet. We don't say commit suicide anymore. We don't say that anymore.
That's
Okay? We don't do that.
What's the new term?
Yes, death by suicide,
Yeah.
death by suicide, died by suicide,
Yeah.
killed themselves. I know. And I use that one pretty often. You know why? Because it is harsh. Because it's what we're dealing with. It's no fun. So when I'm doing an assessment on an individual, I don't tiptoe around it. Oh, Jackie, you're not going to hurt yourself now, are you, honey? I don't do that. First of all, hurt yourself and kill yourself, different. Right? Hurt yourself could be non-injurious self-harm. Thank you, that's my supervisor. Non-injurious self-harm, which means burning yourself, cutting yourself.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am, that's hurting yourself. When I'm doing an assessment on an individual, I'm not concerned if they're going to hurt themselves. I'm concerned if they're going to kill someone or if they're going to kill themselves. That's what I'm concerned with. Okay?
Well, what happens when they kill their spouse and then they commit suicide?
Yes, and it happens all the time. Happens unfortunately, all the time, so often. And so all we can do is learn as much as we can from those poignant situations, educate ourselves more if feasibly possible, and try to provide hope to other people. And share resources. Yes, sir.
Some folks think that if I mention that,
Yeah.
people are worried about it, that's going to give them the idea.
And it won't. Just exactly like, thank you for that comment, exactly like Jordan mentioned at the top of the hour, that's a myth. I mean, if you tell me, well, in fact, you sure are thin today, well, heck fire, unfortunately, I'm not thin. Same thing, and I say that so lightheartedly and jokingly with you because I need it to resonate. If you ask me, Yvette, are you thinking about death by suicide? You asking me that as my friend, as my uncle, as my neighbor, that's not going to make me have death by suicide, sir. I promise it's not. I shouldn't say the word promise, but I know for a fact it's not. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Just because you ask, they don't always tell you.
Oh, you know where we work. I know you're a volunteer. I've heard nothing but lovely things about you, by the way. Yes, thank you, sincerely. I know Lori, comment, yeah. we've had a lot of clients that had death by suicide. It happens. It's inevitable, unfortunately. However, us as mental health healthcare professionals, we want to whittle those numbers down. We want it to go away, but we know it's not. But we're going to do our best for it to.
Have you worked with teenagers?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Teenagers, adults, yeah, seniors, everyone. Everyone. Yes, we do. Let's see, I'm almost finished, guys. Let's see here. So some of the community trainings that I do, and once again, Jordan did mention self-care. I happen to do a self-care training. You are so invited. It's 2 hours. It's at our facility. It's fun. We have self-care. Bingo. B-I-N-G-O. We have it. Okay. And sincerely, self-care, and I have to always get myself back in here. This is very helpful not only for professionals, for individuals who are caregivers. I talked to someone earlier that told me that they're a caregiver, right? It teaches you how to keep your passion and your compassion for taking care of someone and taking care of ourselves. And we learn different kinds of self-care, and I love that she asked that at the top of the hour, like, what are different self-care, you know, so we learn about that. So that's one of the trainings. Okay, now this is a heavy-duty one. It's called ASSIST. ASSIST is Applied Science Intervention Skills Training. It is a workshop. It is 16 hours, 2 days. Heavy hitters. It's not, and I'm going to be completely frank with you, it's not for everyone. It is really good. And what I mean about not for everyone, because some individuals, especially if they've had the secondary trauma of a suicide, meaning a family friend, loved one, you know, death by suicide, and they take it immediately, sometimes it bubbles up too much emotion for them. However, some individuals, it's therapeutic for them. So once again, it's not a blanket. Okay, so everyone's different. But it is heavy duty because it's two days. I would give you a friendly suggestion of starting with mental health first aid. The wonderful, wonderful, undisputed Phyllis Finley is a co-worker of mine. She is an absolute rock star. She's been with the center 30 years, something along those lines. We're actually facilitating a group tomorrow for TWU. So we do it virtually from 9 a.m. until 4 p.m. We have a 5-minute break every hour and an hour for lunch. Mental health first aid teaches individuals how to ask others about suicide. Some people have never said the words out loud. Are you thinking about death by suicide? Are you thinking about killing yourself? Some people have never said that. We teach you how to do that. And I won't say with comfort, but we teach you how to do that. And when we teach you, I'm telling you, sir, you darn well better be ready for the answer. The first time a client told me yes, oh, you think I've got a sweat ring going now? I'm telling you, I almost, woo, you know. But I do have common sense, you know. I mean, I have an education and stuff like that, but I have a little common sense too. So I thought, you're not alone, sir. I mean, you should right now. You're not alone, sir. Thank you for telling me that. I'm gonna call him Bob. Now, Bob, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna call my supervisor, Yesenia. I'm not gonna hang up on you. I'm gonna call her from my personal phone, and you're gonna hear the phone. And that's just an example, okay? And that's exactly what I did. Because I wasn't, at the time, we were working from home due to COVID, so I didn't have the luxury of flagging down a coworker. So that's what I did, and thank goodness that person is still with us. So if once we learn how to ask, all I can tell you is you darn well had better be ready for the
I think
answer.
most people that do call and that really do want somebody to help them.
Yes,
I mean,
yes,
the majority of them.
yes.
Yeah.
And I think that's what attracts us to the field and why we keep going to work every day.
Yeah.
So the answer is yes.
Because the ones that I think we know about, these people wouldn't want anything to one.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know why people don't seek mental health treatment? And you know why people don't talk about suicide? Do you want to know some reasons? Let's talk about it. Give me a reason.
Frightened, they don't want to come to terms that it's actually going on in their environment.
So that
Here, folks and
Or
random.
that they did something wrong to make that person.
Right, so that self-blaming, right? That stigma, I call it the S word,
Yeah,
stigma.
yeah.
I tell you what, that darn stigma, it's as heavy as a coat. Not in Rosen Ranch,
Yeah.
not in Texas, not on my watch. You know how many police officers have death by suicide?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, but not on my watch. Not my husband, not my wife, not my daughter, not my son. Yes, 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 all of the above, yes, because it happens.
But how do you attempt to erase the stigmatism?
By educating people, by letting individuals know, Scott, it's okay not to be okay. And we do that in a variety of different ways. We do it through our education programs. One little thing about that saying, it's okay not to be okay, like for months I had that under my signature line. Like just little small things. It's okay not to be okay. Not judging people, not calling people crazy. Talk about language. Can't do that. Not saying, oh, did he commit suicide? We don't say that. Did they have death by suicide? Not sticking the little nosy beak in the situation. Were they having money problems? We don't talk about that. That is so irrelevant. We're human, yes, I know, but that's irrelevant. By putting ourselves in that person's shoes.
That's number one question, is why.
Yeah. It's not my business. But other reasons, I'll tell you. Some individuals don't know that Denton County MHMR is the mental health authority for our area. Some people do not know that. Some people do not know that just because they don't have a job, or just because they don't have insurance, or just because they're underinsured, they don't know that we can still assist them and provide them services. So the lack of knowing, the lack of resources, if an individual happens to live in a very rural community, and let's say they are socially isolated, let's say they are, and I don't want to say, I don't know another example, but let's say they're homeschooled and perhaps have a small social circle, okay? Or all these contributing factors, you know? So, also, let's see, we have a mental health first aid for youth. Also, I personally am not a facilitator in that one. Are you, Yesenia? But we have several co-workers that are. I teach the adults by choice. I worked in the prison system for boys ages 13 to 21 for years, so I feel on that, okay? However, no, I have. However, I really and truly enjoy doing the mental health first aid for adults. We have some resources, references. So at this time, I would just like to encourage you, right before our questions, I would like to encourage you to check on yourselves once again. Do that mental check. Daily self-care, and you laughed. I saw you. But you also answered the gym like, yeah, we can do daily self-care. Come up with a self-care mantra. Does anyone happen to remember Popeye? The cartoon? What was his self-care mantra? What did he say all the time? That's it, I love you guys. I am what I am. That's it. And that means I accept myself for who I am. I accept myself for what I am. I accept myself as I am. Questions? You guys got some questions for us?
Oh, great job.
Cool, thanks. Yes, sir.
This is a little outside the track, but you used to work in hospice.
Yes.
Give me your thoughts on assisted suicide.
I don't have a professional opinion on it. My personal perspective on it has fluctuated over the years. Man, I could be a politician. I mean, I'm tiptoeing. I'm dancing on it. To be honest with you, I used to be firmly against it. I was raised Catholic. I'm from Gainesville, I went to St. Mary's, my brother and I did, my daughter did, blah, 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 blah. And then I started to think, oh yeah, I can get it. Listen, sir, when you love someone, personal opinion, not professional, but when you love someone, don't cry. When you love someone so much, and they're in so much physical pain, I'm not the judge of what that person could do for that person they love. I only, for myself, on a personal level, can pray that I'm never in this situation, because honestly, sir, I don't know what I would do. 2 weeks ago, after visiting my mother, I told my brother that I wish she didn't even know who I was anymore.
Yeah.
Because it's that darn painful. Dementia, you understand? However, I just had to get through that darn pain, because then I had 2 days in a row where she was, she told me her fish was hella good. So to be honest with you, I don't know. I know I don't have a professional stance on it, and I truly pray I'm never in that situation, because I don't know what I'd do. What do you think?
Well, I mean, if I start to compare cultures, I look at the United States and I try to find a culture that has similar issues with suicide. And so I look to Canada, they have similar culture as we do. They have a lot lower suicide rate, but they also have assisted suicide. In 2022, they had over 10,000 assisted suicides, the most of any on the planet.
I didn't know that.
Part of that is because of socialized medicine. And suicide became part of the treatment in a socialized, and I wonder if this country is moving in that direction.
I have no idea, sir.
I mean, socialized medicine.
Yes, yes.
Will we start taking on the tenets of Canada and the UK? UK has really high assisted suicide numbers, another example. And I was just curious what your thoughts were.
Sure, of
Working in
course.
hospitals.
Of course, yeah. It was, and during that time for sure, I can just tell you, it's a tough gig. It's a tough gig. I'm sorry I couldn't answer that better. Do you guys have questions for Jordan and I?
Mine's a little different,
Yes,
like,
ma'am.
with faith, person of faith. I wonder if you see a correlation in either direction, person of faith. Are they more willing, less willing? Difference? Is there any kind of difference?
I will say that there is a difference, and in our assist training, you're smart, in our assist training, that's one of the things that we talk about right away, that we explore. We do a poll amongst participants, and we get their views anonymously on certain things, yeah, you know, of course, I feel as though it's a, contributing
Religious
factor.
people do die by suicide, they do kill
Yeah.
themselves. And their spouses are shocked because they didn't think they would ever do that. But it still happens. I'm sorry?
You said they were mostly what?
Yes, so the spouse is just as shocked because they are extremely religious. They go to church every Sunday and Wednesday, and it still happens.
And unfortunately, not only are they shocked, they're embarrassed. And we shouldn't be embarrassed. They're ashamed, and we shouldn't have that shame. And they become isolated, and then they become what? Part of that ripple effect, right? That Jordan, educated us all. I'm sorry. Yes, of course, of course. You're the wife.
I think that's what they need now. Where they're blamed. They blame themselves.
I didn't hear you earlier, but your loved one, I didn't think my loved one would be able to commit suicide. Is that what you were referring to?
So I was referring that with religious individuals.
Okay.
So a lot of people that go to church,
Yeah.
when their loved one passes away, they don't think that they would have done that
Yeah.
because of so religiously they are. And
Okay.
it happens. Suicide does not discriminate.
Do you teach how to recognize certain signs in classes?
Yes, we do. And I really, in both of them we do. For individuals that have never taken a suicide prevention course, I find that mental health first aid is a great starting point. Because it's uncomfortable, right? And it eases us into the conversation. However, when we leave at the end of the day, we're going to ask, and we're going to ask directly. And we're going to know what resources to use. If we happen to get that answer, yes.
Well, this will be online, so if you know anybody that wants to see what they presented today, it will be on our website, the Living Well website. And I think that might be something we need to really post for people who are uncomfortable to come here, that they can look at your review online, we'll have a look at your presentation.
And we can come out again.
Anytime, or if you all ever want to have a panel discussion, and we can bring another co-worker with us, and because there's so much to explore when it comes to the subject matter. But I really just want to reiterate that we wanted to provide you all with hope.
Right.
We want to provide you all with resources. We want to let you know that Denton County MHMR is your mental health authority. 988 is the number that we can call. You know, Jordan, we pulled our resources together. Jordan printed them out. Please, we didn't bring this out here for nothing. Please stop by the table and get some. No judgment. Okay? Yes, thank you. We appreciate it.
I didn't know until
18 years of age, you have to be, which I think we all are older than that. It's for anybody.
And it's free. And you don't have to say anything. Just going there and hearing everybody's stories, that helps too.
Living Well has a sponsor, Baku. They have a raffle. I assume everybody got tickets when you came in. We'll have the drawing now.